Hello, welcome to Keeping Your Team Motivated. I'm Carol Gaskell, founder of Full Potential Group, and I've been working over quite a number of years on looking at team motivation and how we keep everybody energized, and especially right now with all the change going on and we're moving into this new normal, how do you keep everybody energized? And in this session, I'm going to talk about three key elements. So I'm going to look at why is motivation important, and specifically now as we move into the new normal, how you can recognize 9 different motivators in yourself and your team, and also what are the hot buttons to help keep everybody motivated as we move through all these myriad of changes. The thing about keeping motivated is understanding what motivation is. Motivation, fundamentally, it's energy. So if every single person on your team is working full of energy and all fueled up, then your team's going to achieve more, simpler, better, faster. So we're talking about your energy, and it comes from the Anglo-Norman term motive, which means drive. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at what's driving your team. And our motivators are actually our inner drivers. So it's the inner drivers that determine how we feel and why we do what we do. So right now, as we're working in teams, and I know some people have got remote workers, some people are virtual teams, some people are a mixture, then keeping everybody energized and understanding what drives everybody is really critical. And actually, it's all about our why. Our motivation, what gets us out of bed in the morning, what drives us as individuals, but also as team members, serves to help us understand what our why is, what our purpose is, what makes life meaningful. And if we start with why from a team perspective, the how we do things and the what we do and the what we achieve becomes so much easier. And very highly engaged, motivated employees and team members are 50% more likely to outperform their performance targets. So understanding what motivates people is key, because the best companies at achieving revenue growth are the ones that keep people motivated. The best companies that really engage people get 4.5 times the revenue growth. So motivation engagement's key. And if you think about it, every single person on your team, every individual, it's key to understand the vision, the direction, and the goals of a team. And we all can look at the goal setting, but understanding the skills and the behavior and how the team work is fundamental. But the third part of this triangle is the motivation and the energy and why we do what we do. And I would actually argue that yes, you need some what and you need to understand the how, but I would actually say that the why is most important, because the why is actually our energy and the fuel in our tank. So you could have the best team in the world with a clear vision and direction. You might have reimagined your future already and everyone's clear on the goals. You can have the skills and behaviors and what you're doing, but if nobody's got any fuel in the tank, if people are exhausted, if they're worried, they've got a lack of motivation, you might be in a business right now that's totally flourishing, but everyone's working flat out and people are tired. Or you might be in a business that's having to recreate itself, and therefore your team is really having to look and start from scratch again at what you want to do. And you might have low motivation energies. So I would say for anybody in a team, motivation is more important than the other two. It's about 60% of a team leader's job to motivate their people. Yes, you need a clear what and a how, but actually the why is more important. And if you understand each individual's what, how, and why, and you understand what the leader's motivation is, and you understand collectively what your team motivation is, then you end up with a really clear true north for your team. Now, as everybody now is looking at recreating the future and looking at where you're going, if everyone's aligned around what motivates and drives you, then it's going to be easier to move forward into the new normal and create a new future for ourselves. So what I want to talk to you about is some groundbreaking work called Mapping Motivation, which is originated by James Sale, who's an expert in motivation, and James has devoted 30 years of his life to understanding what drives people. Now, there are lots of existing tools and techniques to understand motivation. Some of you may well be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You might know about Dan Pink. and drive. And what James Sale has done is he's looked at all the tools and models on motivation that have been created over the years, and he's mapped them all together to create a really comprehensive understanding of how you can understand your own motivators and measure them, but you can also understand your team's motivators and your organization's motivators, measure them and map them so you can see where everyone's aligned. So if you think for a minute about your own motivation, there are three things that drive our motivation and that give us energy. And part of what motivates us is our personality. Some of you may well have done personality profiling. Your team might have done MBTI, Myers-Briggs, you might have done the colours, insights, SDI. And it's useful to understand your personality. Don't worry if you've not done personality profiling, it doesn't matter. Nobody gets out of bed in the morning because of their personality. What you get out of bed in the morning is because what drives you, it's your motivation. But personality is part of it. So if you're doing things that suit your personality, you'll have more energy and your team members will have more energy. But motivation's more than that. So you also need to have what we call a healthy self-concept. So if you feel good about yourself, if you see yourself in a positive light, if you feel quite self-confident and you've got a confident team, then you'll have more motivation. But you also need the third bit, and this is what's critical right now with all the change going on, is it's good to feel positive about the future. If you've got positive, optimistic future expectations and you feel good about yourself and you're doing things that suit your personality, you'll have a high level of motivation. But if any one of these three is less, it will suck your motivation down and it will suck your team's motivation down. So if you think right now, to what degree is what you're doing suiting your personality? How good are you feeling about yourself? How healthy is your self-confidence and self-concept? And how excited and optimistic are you feeling about the future? If you put those three together, you might be able to guess how motivated you are, how motivated your team is. And what we do when we map motivation is we actually look at a motivation score between 0 and 100%. Now, you might want to look at the handout that comes with this webcast to have a bit of an idea of how motivated you might be. Now, ideally, we'd be looking for as many team members as possible to be in that optimal zone, to be 80% motivated or more. Be honest with yourself. How motivated are you feeling right now? Are you in the optimal zone, and are your team members in the optimal zone? Some of you might be in the boost zone, 60 to 80% motivated. It's still fairly motivated. The average motivation of a typical team is a bit less than 60%. So if you're already over 60% motivated, we call it the boost zone, because what you'll be looking for is a few small boosts or tweaks that you can help support your team to get into optimum. Right now, many teams are sitting in what we would call the risk zone or even the action zone. There's been so much change going on that motivation is flat or energy is quite low. If you suspect that your motivation is more 35 to 60%, you'll have a risk to your energy. And hopefully the rest of this webcast will give you some ideas of what you can do to boost it and help your team members. If you're in the action zone, it really is some time for action. So let's look at what might motivate you. Because if you think that you're pretty motivated, and this person we profile was 88% motivated, they're in the optimal zone. But you might have team members that are less than that. The second person on this team was 52% motivated, so their motivation was declining. So helping them boost their motivation is key as part of teamwork. When we mapped the whole team, and there were other people in the team, the overall team was 73% motivated, which was pretty good. So what we were looking at was how could we boost that team to get into the optimal zone, to be able to navigate the future that they're trying to pull together for. So thinking about it, what does get your team out of bed in the morning? There are three key areas, and you might want to think about this and have a look at the worksheet. Some teams and some people get out of bed in the morning because of relationships. It's the people they meet, it's the clients or the customers that they speak to on the phone or they're connecting with through their remote connections or in person. It's the teams they're a part of. It's all about collaboration and connection. For other teams, it's about achievement. It's that sense of a project that you want to get over the line. It's delivering something. It's feeling like you might be commercially making some money, but it's about achieving things. It's achieving your big, hairy, audacious goals. It's getting somewhere. It's making progress. For other teams, they're more what we would call growth orientated. And what would get your team out of bed in the morning is that desire to grow yourselves, to grow the team, to grow the business that you're a part of, to create new ideas, to develop new things, to be quite future orientated. So have a thought for a minute, which one of these three do you think is most important to you? You might want to stop the webcast and just consider it. Are you relationship orientated, achievement orientated, or growth? And think about your team. What's most important for your team? Because in terms of change and managing change, if you're relationship orientated, then you might be a little bit slow to change because you want to take everybody with you. You don't want to upset people. You want to make sure everyone's feeling okay. If you're achievement orientated and the rest of your team is, you'll be in the middle on change, because as long as the change is going to help you achieve what you want to achieve, you'll go with it. But if the changes might stop you making progress on your goals, you'll put your foot on the brake. If you're growth orientated, you're probably change makers in your team or in your business, and you'll thrive on the changes and what's going on right now. So just have a think about that for yourself. And as you'll see, there are actually 9 motivators, 3 out of each of those segments. There is a worksheet that accompanies this, and you can start to have a look at which of these motivators are most important to you. In the relationship sector, you'll see that some team members might have the defender motivator. They want safety, security, and predictability. Now, right now, that could be quite challenging, so their motivators might be a bit lower or a bit flat. Some people in teams have strong friends, so they want to be connected. They want fulfilling relationships. They want to know you're going to be there for them right now as you're going through the changes. The stars on teams like the recognition, respect and trust, and being recognized in that social esteem aspect is really important for them. So showing that you recognize them, helping see how important they are as members of your team is critical. In the achievement motivators, you might have people in your team who have the director motivator. They like to have a clear sense of direction. They like to have a degree of power or influence or control over things. And if you want to empower them, it's looking at what control can you give? What responsibility can you give them to keep them motivated? The builders on the team are probably the most commercially orientated. Yes, they tend to like money, making money, but saving money for the team. They might like material satisfaction, above average standard of living, so performance related pay could be really useful for them, but they like targets and goals and to achieve those and tick them off the list. You might be an expert, or you might have experts in your team. What they get energized and motivated by is knowledge, mastery. They want to be even better at what they do. They like to be the go-to person on the team about particular areas of specialism. When we move to the growth motivators, you might have people on your team who have the creator motivator. They love innovating, creating, thinking outside the box. And right now for them, thinking about new ideas, problem solving, coming up with solutions that no one else has thought of could be really good as part of your team. Some of you might have spirits in your team. The spirits are potentially quite hard to manage because the spirits like freedom and control and some autonomy. They hate being micromanaged or told what to do. So empowering them, but being really clear on expectations is critical for spirits. Or you might have searchers on the team. Searchers like to do meaningful work. It's about purpose. It's about feeling like they're making a difference, feeling like they're being valued. So giving them regular feedback on the value that they're bringing to the team, or the value they're bringing to the greater good of what your team does, is really important. So maybe stop the webcast and think, what are your most important motivators? Which ones get you out of bed in the morning? And also which ones get your team members out of bed in the morning? And once you've understood your top motivators, think about how satisfied they are right now. Are you really fueled up in those motivators? Because if they're not satisfied, it's thinking, what can you do about them? And how can you support your team members to get their motivators satisfied? The other thing to think about is, what's your bottom motivator? What's something that maybe sucks your energy, doesn't give you that high buzz of a feeling? Try and minimize the impact of your bottom motivator. and understand your teammates' bottom motivators so that you're not triggering each other's low motivators and maybe demotivating people. Different team members have different combinations of motivators. So understanding what you have in common and understanding what's different makes a team even stronger. You can see here that person A and person B both have a very strong top motivator, the purposeful searcher motivator. So meaning and making a difference is important to them. But person A also likes friendship, whereas person B, it's more about freedom and independence and being a free spirit. You can see that person B and person C both have the expert in their blend, which is that insightful knowledge. So for them, it's about knowledge. And person C brings some commerciality to the team, as well as some independence. So you can start to see the blends, but understanding your blends can actually create a team report so you can see what your team's got in common. This particular example, the team is incredibly purposeful because the search motivator is their top motivator. So right now, as they're navigating all the changes, it's making sure that everyone's clear about the team purpose, why we're doing what we're doing. But also, there's a huge amount of expertise on the team. So increasing people's knowledge, helping them learn as they navigate through the changes is really important. The watch out for this team is that the third collective motivator is the spirit, which likes independence. So there could be a challenge for this team in people working in silos and not connecting with each other. So understanding what's driving your team can actually keep everyone motivated, but it can also work together to support people. If you have high searcher, a meaning and make a difference is important to you or your team members, make sure that you agree clear objectives and give each other feedback. If you have spirits on your team, give a clear structure, simplify admin, make sure that they prioritize the things that are most important so they feel free. If you've got creators in your team, let them problem solve, help them think outside the box and reimagine your team for the future. Those experts on your team, if you can, give them training, coaching, mentoring support, and help them build their knowledge. For the builders on the team, make sure they've got goals, big, hairy, audacious goals and targets, and that they're being rewarded, or that you reward yourself if you have a builder, and notice your wins, celebrate those. For the directors in the team, make sure you've got the responsibility you need right now. And if you've got stars on your team, make sure they're getting involved in the high visible projects and that you're recognizing them for the value they bring. The friends on the team, the belonging in the friendship, keep them involved, especially if they're now part of a virtual team. It's making sure that there's opportunities to connect and touch space and collaborate with each other. The friends are often the glue that holds a team together. And for defenders on the team who want safety and security, make sure your team is having regular communication. Communicate will help defenders feel safe. So I hope this has given you a little bit of an idea of how to motivate your team members. Defenders want to know this will work and that they'll feel safe. Friends want to know that you'll be there for them. The stars want to know that they'll look good. People with director like a little bit of control. The people who are experts want to know how they can learn a bit more. The people who are builders, how can I make money, or how can I make it commercially viable in this team? People who are creators want to be able to make changes, so they're the ones that will help you drive forward. The people who like that spirit and freedom, please help them prioritize so they can make the most of your team working. And for those of you that really have high searcher, how do you know you can make a difference? Because making a difference right now is going to be key to you. So I hope this has given you some thoughts and some ideas on how you can motivate yourself and your team. And ideally, as we go through all these changes, your motivation may well change over time. But if you want to understand your motivation, have a go at the quiz that you've got in the handout, or you might want to look at the Full Potential Group website, www.fullpotentialgroup.com, and actually do a motivational map for yourself or your team. I hope this has given you some great insights and that you and your team will stay motivated as you navigate through all the changes. Thank you.